In 1983, the U.S. Army Operational Group tasked an analyst with a question that should have been confined to, well, to philosophical debate.
Or maybe an ancient library somewhere.
Exactly. The question was this: is reality real? The answer they received, codified in the cold clinical language of military intelligence, was no.
Wait, just hold on. This isn't fiction we're talking about here. This is a document, right? A verified U.S. government document.
It is.
So the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, actually commissioned and wrote this. An analysis on the nature of reality itself.
They did. We are looking at the core findings of a document titled Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. It's dated June 9th, 1983.
And it was prepared for the Army.
For the U.S. Army, yes.
No.
And it didn't see the light of day for 20 years, not until 2003, after a Freedom of Information Act request forced it out.
It's an unnerving thing to just look at. You see the dull typewriter font on that old government paper, the official stamps. It looks so boring, so bureaucratic.
The physical embodiment of procedure.
But inside, I mean, what you're saying is that this bland report contains the most revolutionary and frankly terrifying set of conclusions ever reached by an intelligence agency.
The mandate, on the surface, was simple enough. They were told to analyze the Monroe Institute's Gateway experience. It was a commercially available training system, used audio tech.
But that wasn't the real reason, was it?
The real reason was anything but simple. They were asking a question that it cuts to the very foundation of consciousness, of the universe itself.
They weren't looking for tactics. Not for standard spycraft.
No.
The military intelligence complex was what? Probing the mechanics of the human soul. Trying to find a repeatable scientific method for the metaphysical.
The specific haunting question that drove this entire assessment was this: can the non-physical component of a human being,
The soul, the spirit.
the report uses those terms, or the mind's organizing principle, the question was, could that part of us be separated from the physical body? And could it travel intentionally through space and time?
My God. They were looking for operational confirmation of psychic phenomena.
Specifically, astral projection, remote viewing, and temporal manipulation.
The implication being, if you can prove they exist, you can. You can weaponize them, or at least use them for intelligence gathering. But the chilling part, the part that's hard to process, is that the CIA, they didn't debunk it.
2-second silence. The document's final assessment determined that the theoretical and physical mechanisms proposed by the gateway process are not just possible, they are entirely viable.
Bangable.
And grounded in what the report repeatedly calls coherent principles of physics. Consciousness, according to this 1983 assessment, can be deliberately shifted out of the body.
And for that to be true, I mean, for that to even be possible, they had to just, throw out our entire understanding of reality?
They had to. That is the most profound part of the document. They had to adopt a new model just to rationalize how this was physically possible.
And that's where it gets really strange.
It's the ultimate revelation. To make sense of non-local consciousness, the ability to get information without being physically present. The report posits a new framework. It states that the universe isn't made of solid stuff. Not at all.
It says it's a hologram.
A complex, multi-dimensional hologram, constructed entirely from intersecting energy fields. And that holographic structure is the only way the mind can travel non-locally.
A secret blueprint, hidden in a declassified memo for 40 years. It goes from a sound playing in a pair of headphones to the very edge of existence.
So let's transition to that technical mechanism, the blueprint itself. The practical tool here is an audio technology called Hemi-Sync.
Hemispheric synchronization.
And the document treats this not as some new age idea, but as a precise form of neurological engineering, brain forcing.
The goal then is to manipulate the brain's electrical patterns.
Really?
Intentionally, reliably.
You have to bypass the normal chaotic frequencies of the waking mind, the beta state, and force the brain into very specific synchronized low frequency states.
And this is done with binaural beats.
Yes. And we need to approach this part with the same gravity as a military technical manual. Hemi-Sync relies on a known neurological phenomenon. It's called the frequency following response, or FFR.
FFR. And that's key because it's involuntary, right? You can't just choose to ignore it. But how does the audio actually do it?
The mechanism is, it's deceptively simple. You play two separate pure tone frequencies into stereo headphones, one for the left ear, one for the right.
Okay.
The report gives a specific example. Let's say you have a 1,000 hertz tone in the left ear.
And in the right.
A slightly higher tone, 1,004 hertz. Now, these two signals don't mix in the air. They stay separate until they meet inside the brain, inside the corpus callosum that connects the two hemispheres.
So the brain is getting two different but very similar inputs.
Yeah.
And it has to, what, make sense of the difference?
It tries to reconcile the disparity, and it does that by creating a phantom beat.
A phantom beat.
Exactly. The brain's auditory system perceives a pulsating third signal, and that signal's frequency is the exact mathematical difference between the two inputs. In our example, 1004 minus 1000.
4 hertz. The brain generates a 4 hertz beat internally.
That is the point of entry.
And 4 hertz is the critical number. Why? What's so important about that specific low frequency?
Because 4 hertz falls right into the theta brainwave range. That's about 4 to 7 hertz. The document notes that theta is associated with, well, deep meditation, REM sleep, and crucially, the entry into altered states of consciousness, ASCs.
And that perceived beat triggers the frequency following response you mentioned.
It does, and this is the involuntary part. Brainwave entrainment. The brain's own electrical activity is basically designed to harmonize with external rhythms. So this phantom beat, it forces the brain's own electrical patterns to mimic it, to entrain to it.
It's compelled to reorganize its own activity to match the 4 hertz signal.
Which leads to the ultimate goal, the name of the process: hemispheric synchronization, Hemi-Sync. By forcing the brain to entrain to that low-frequency beat, you coerce both the left and right hemispheres to operate in a single, unified electrical state.
The mind goes from that fast, active beta state of being awake and is forced down into a deep, synchronized theta rhythm.
And according to the document, this unification is the engine. The report says this synchronized state generates a specific kind of energy wave, high amplitude, low frequency, that can extend its influence beyond the physical body.
So they're turning the brain into a coherent signal transmitter.
Yeah.
That's a technical basis for separating consciousness from the body.
We have to pause here. Think about the significance. The left hemisphere deals with logic, analysis, linear time, the world we think we live in.
And the right hemisphere is intuition, nonverbal stuff, spatial awareness.
Forcing them to synchronize means you are intentionally bypassing the linear, localized processing of the left brain. You're allowing the right brain's nonlinear abilities to take over your awareness.
So the theory is that our normal waking state is, it's inherently flawed for perceiving reality correctly. Our two processing centers are speaking different electrical languages.
And Hemi-Sync just forces them to speak in the same slow rhythm.
It's the first step.
It is the first step in the blueprint, which takes us from the tool, Hemi-Sync, to the operational states themselves. We have to examine the progression. These are the steps that transform consciousness from something stuck in your head into an apparatus for non-local information gathering.
The operational states. They
Yeah.
sound like levels you have to achieve. Carefully sequenced plateaus of consciousness.
The first critical one is Focus 10. The name for it is Mind, Awake, Body, Asleep.
And the document says this is the foundation, the absolute prerequisite.
It is. The Hemi-Sync frequency is adjusted to push the brain from beta and alpha down into a very deep but still fully cognizant theta range.
The physiological goal sounds chillingly mechanical. Somatic detachment. You're putting the body into a deep trance on purpose.
The report details how they slow metabolic processes, minimize all external sensory input.
But the core of it is quieting the somatosensory cortex.
Yes, that's the part of the brain that processes touch, pain, temperature, your sense of where your body even is in space. When you mute that cortex, the physical body effectively vanishes from your mind's perception. It becomes dormant, an anchor dropped out of sight.
But, and this is the paradox, the mind is still there. Your consciousness isn't asleep. It's described as being amplified, hyper-aware.
Mind awake, body asleep. That's the full meaning.
And the report's interpretation of this is what?
It uses very detached language. It says, Focus 10 separates the energy matrix of consciousness from its normal entanglement with the physical body.
If consciousness really is an energy matrix, a structured field of energy, then Focus 10 is the stable platform of disembodied awareness. It is, and I'm using their words, the neurological launch pad.
Without that stable detachment, the mind is just too tied to the body, tethered by sensory input. Focus 10 cuts those tethers, but it keeps the pilot, your consciousness, fully alert.
And from that launch pad, you can go to the next state.
Focus 12, expanded awareness. This is described as the first major leap beyond the purely physical dimension you achieve in Focus 10.
Wow.
The Hemi-Sync frequency shifts even deeper into the theta band. It intensifies the brain synchronization and pushes your awareness further from your physical location.
And what does that feel like? What does the subject report?
The cognitive experience of non-locality, your awareness starts to actively expand beyond your immediate three-dimensional space. It's not just feeling detached anymore, it's feeling everywhere.
And this is where they start seeing the results they were looking for, the access to information that you can't get through your five senses.
Exactly. Focus 12 is analyzed as the functional entry point to out-of-body experiences, OBEs, and operational remote viewing.
The progression it's disturbingly logical.
It is.
First, force the brain into rhythm. Second, neutralize the body and stabilize the mind. Third, steer that detached mind into the reality matrix, as they call it. It moves from mechanism to capability.
But the mechanism in the neurological states, they only explain the internal shift inside the brain.
Right. They don't explain how a synchronized brain suddenly starts getting data from thousands of miles away or from the past. What framework did they use to bridge that enormous gap?
And that is the exact point where the document has to pivot dramatically. It leaves neurophysiology behind because traditional science couldn't explain the results.
So it steps into theoretical physics, into cosmology.
It has to. The report requires a new, radical model of reality to explain what subjects in Focus 12 are actually experiencing.
This is the moment they officially dismantle the conventional view of the universe. The idea that solid matter is solid.
They state quite plainly that it is fundamentally an illusion.
2 seconds silence.
And they don't just assert it, they use post-Newtonian physics to justify it. They reference quantum mechanics. They state that at the subatomic level, there are no discrete solid particles. There is no stuff.
There are just
complex patterns of energy vibrating at specific frequencies, every atom, every cell, your own body. It's all just an organization of oscillating energy fields.
So the reality we count on, the chair I'm in, the floor, it's a perceptual error. A slow, vibrating energy pattern that our untrained consciousness just interprets as solid.
And here's the conceptual bridge. If matter is just energy vibrating slowly, then human consciousness must also be an organization of energy.
The key difference being that consciousness is a self-aware organization of energy.
Right. So once the mind is synchronized in Focus 12, the distinction between mind, matter, and space, it just dissolves. What's left is a unified vibrational field, and consciousness is just another frequency pattern inside that field.
Which brings in the concept of resonance.
It's central to the whole thing. If everything is frequency, then the rules of resonance apply. Two energy systems vibrating at the same frequency allow for direct, frictionless transfer of energy and information.
So the brain, trained by Hemi-Sync, starts to match its frequency to the universal energy matrix around it. It achieves resonance.
And that resonance is what allows consciousness to perceive and acquire information non-locally. The physical skull, the bone we think contains our mind, becomes completely irrelevant. The mind just tunes into the universal frequency field.
So things like distance and time and physical walls, those are just limits we accept because our consciousness is stuck in its low frequency, unsynchronized default setting.
So the question becomes, how is the universe structured to allow this universal field to contain all information everywhere all at once?
And this brings us to the centerpiece of the entire theory. The model the CIA accepted in 1983.
The reality model, the universal hologram. This is the core structural revelation of the entire assessment.
2 second silence.
The document concludes that the universe functions as a colossal four-dimensional hologram. And this model is the only thing that solves the paradox of non-local access.
We have to explain what that means. The physics of a hologram.
In a physical hologram, every tiny fragment of the photographic plate contains the complete image of the whole object. You can shatter the plate, but if you illuminate any single shard, you will still see the entire image, just at a lower resolution.
So if you apply that to the universe, the conclusion is just staggering.
It is. It means every single part of the universe, every atom, every person, every individual consciousness contains within it the information of the entire system.
So distance and time become irrelevant. All information is structurally everywhere. At every point.
And that is where the synchronized consciousness comes back in.
The reference beam.
Consciousness, when detached and synchronized, becomes the energetic equivalent of the reference beam of light used to construct and view a hologram. By adjusting its own frequency through the focus states, consciousness can interact with and decode information from any point in that universal energy field.
Past or present.
Past or present.
So remote viewing isn't. It's not seeing through walls. It's tuning your consciousness's frequency to resonate with information that is already imprinted everywhere. The information doesn't travel to you.
You're already where the information is. It's just a matter of learning how to tune the receiver.
And at the four-dimensional aspect,
Yeah.
it's about time, isn't it?
It unifies space and time into a single field. So past and future moments aren't places you travel to. They're data points you simply access by tuning the frequency of your consciousness. All moments exist simultaneously.
This unifying model then forces the report to its final, unavoidable conclusion, the originating source. If all of this is a holographic projection, where does the initial energy come from?
The report calls it the absolute, or the God source, sometimes the cosmic egg or a torus.
They had to define God scientifically, without any of the religious baggage.
And they did. The absolute is defined as an infinite, static, and timeless energy field, the fundamental, non-physical substrate of all existence. Pure energy, not vibrating. It's a state of unmanifested coherence.
Meaning our dynamic, time-bound reality. Space, matter, the flow of time. That's all generated when a tiny piece of that infinite static energy is put into motion. That first vibration creates the frequency-based reality we experience.
And the crucial part is the relationship between that source and us. Human consciousness is viewed as an individual energy pattern generated by the absolute. It separates for a moment, enters the dynamic hologram we call life, and then returns to the source upon physical death.
And the gateway process. It's a scientific method for achieving that reunion before death, intentionally.
A controlled, technical return to the zero-point field of infinite energy and information, achieved with audio technology.
And that is where the findings just became too radical, which led to the redaction, the famous missing page.
Yes, we have to address that, the mystery of the original release.
The glaring discontinuity. Anyone who studied the 2003 release saw it. The document flows perfectly from page 1 through 24, and then it jumped straight to page 26. Page 25 was just gone.
And that omission fueled decades of speculation. I mean, given what came before it, the hologram, the absolute people rightly assumed that page 25 contained the most existentially destabilizing conclusions, the things the CIA deemed too sensitive for anyone to see.
But eventually it came out. Through other FOIA requests, or maybe just better cataloging, the recovered page 25 came to light. And it's the critical link, the ultimate connection between the Hemi-Sync machine and the cosmic theory the Army adopted.
2-second silence. The recovered text. It explicitly confirms the most radical assertions. It does not shy away from the term. It defines God.
Not as a person, but as a structure. Page 25 defines God as the absolute, the unmanifested coherence of all energy, the infinite non-dualistic consciousness from which our entire holographic reality is projected.
And it clarifies the ultimate aim of the entire gateway process. It is the conscious merging of your individual energy matrix, your consciousness, with this source field to achieve full reunion and knowledge while your body is still alive.
It's describing total enlightenment, self-realization, achieved through a technical protocol, which leaves the most censored idea on that page, how to escape the simulation.
The page clarifies that our physical universe, this dynamic, oscillating reality, is fundamentally a closed, limiting system, an experience loop.
A training program, necessary for an individual consciousness to develop and mature before it returns to the absolute. But page 25 details how to graduate.
It describes advanced states, focus 21 and beyond, and it analyzes these states as the mechanism for achieving a permanent state of self-realization that transcends the need for any more physical life in the space-time matrix.
So it confirms the possibility of a conscious, deliberate, and permanent disengagement from the holographic simulation.
To realize you're in the hologram, use a government-validated technique to master your own energy frequency, and then consciously choose to opt out of the reality loop.
That is an existentially dangerous truth for any government to admit is scientifically viable.
And this understanding dictates the report's final conclusion on the purpose of humanity. By linking the structured energy of the physical body with the infinite static energy of the absolute, the report suggests our evolutionary purpose is to achieve this full knowledge while still operating inside the hologram.
To become a bridge between the static source and the dynamic manifestation, an intelligence agency assessed the destiny of the human race.
So the censorship of page 25 makes perfect sense from a control perspective. This wasn't about a weapon. It was a deliberate attempt to suppress an officially validated conclusion that would completely destabilize the materialistic paradigm that our society is built on.
If the government confirms reality is a closed system that you can technically escape from, the foundations of authority just crumble. The CIA, the ultimate keeper of secrets, confirms the most radical ideas of ancient mysticism, using the language of physics.
So the 1983 analysis and assessment of gateway process remains, well, one of the most intellectually shattering documents to ever come out of the intelligence archives. It starts with binaural beats in headphones. It ends with the nature of God, space-time, and human purpose.
The realization it leaves you with is, it's chilling. The government has known for decades that reality is flexible. The solid, linear, predictable world we see is just the low-frequency, unsynchronized default setting of an untrained mind.
This report provides the technical blueprints for dissolving the boundaries of self, time, and space. It asserts, with the clinical certainty of a military assessment, that the universe is an immense four-dimensional frequency pattern generated by a single, infinite, conscious source.
And the most profound use of the gateway process was never espionage. It was never about spying. It's the establishment of a scientific, codified path to self-transcendence. It validates the old esoteric claims that the self is an eternal, non-local energy construct, and that this physical life is a temporary vibrational experience inside a projection.
2-second silence. The final, inescapable question that this document poses. It isn't a military one. It's not political. It's an existential imperative, one that page 25 implies but refuses to spell out.
The technical blueprint is there. The official validation is secured. The theory of the source and the escape mechanism is codified. The manual exists.
The question remains, if our entire reality, the walls, the sky, the feeling of our own hands, is an interactive, multidimensional hologram of oscillating energy, and the mechanics for conscious detachment and expansion have been codified by a U.S. intelligence agency, then what must you do to finally wake up from the simulation?